Have you ever tried to talk to silence? It doesn't answer. It just echoes inside us. In a cabin hidden among ancient trees lives a man whose hands are marked by time. The silence that lives in his home isn't peaceful. It's the silence of absence. Dusty photos of three sons who have moved away. A golden ring forgotten on the fireplace mantel. A rocking chair that still creaks, even with no one sitting in it. Since she left 3 winters ago, time seems to have frozen. He no longer celebrates birthdays, doesn't expect visitors. He just watches the seasons change their clothing outside, as if life still goes on. Just not for him anymore. In the forest, he walks slowly, as if searching for something he doesn't know he's missing. On one of those misty mornings, he heard a fragile sound, a faint chirp, almost a whisper. Beneath damp leaves, a trembling blue bird lay, one wing bent awkwardly. The old man knelt down. Tired eyes met frightened ones, and in that instant, something stirred inside him. Something that had been asleep for a long time. He brought the little bird home, set up a small cage near the window with twigs, fresh water, and seeds. And every day, he cared for that tiny being as if it were the last spark of meaning he had left. The bird's song filled the house. Like a lit candle in a dark room, its presence seemed to push away the emptiness. But the old man, he didn't know yet. He hadn't realized that not all care is freedom, and not all love understands what the other truly needs. It was morning. The light filtered through the trees gently, as if it didn't want to wake the leaves. The old man walked with short, firm steps, not out of purpose, but out of habit. The forest had been his only setting for years. His only dialogue was with the wind, and sometimes with memories. That day, something broke the pattern. A faint, fragile sound, like the forest clearing its throat. He followed it, guided more by instinct than intention, until he found a small heap of blue feathers on the moss. A bird, tiny with bright eyes and a trembling body. Its right wing looked bent like a wounded branch. The old man knelt, reached out carefully, and the bird didn't flee. That sudden trust pierced something in him. It had been so long since anyone trusted him. Not his children, too busy to remember their father. Not his neighbors, who no longer recalled his name. And now, here among trees and silence, a fragile being placed its life in his hands without a single word. With careful hands, he wrapped the bird in an old handkerchief and brought it home, cleaned its feathers with warm water, crafted a small support for the wing out of twigs, and turned an old attic cage into a shelter. He placed the cage near the window, the only spot where the sun still shone, and for days, he cared for the bird like something sacred. It was as if that little creature had returned to the old man, something he'd lost, a mission, a purpose, a name. In the days that followed, the old man spoke to the bird as if praying. He told stories no one else wanted to hear, spoke of his wife, the silence in the house, how he no longer remembered his own voice, until now. And the bird listened with attentive eyes, with calm breath, but it didn't sing, and the old man, so enchanted by the presence, didn't yet notice the silence growing inside the cage. As the days passed, he no longer woke out of habit, but out of desire. The first thing he did was check on his tiny guest. Make sure he had slept well, eaten enough that his wing looked better. It was curious, caring for something so fragile required a gentleness he thought he had lost with age. But in front of that small being, his hands grew soft again, his eyes attentive. His heart less hardened. He began to speak more, as if the bird were a mute confessor of his soul. He spoke of forgotten birthdays, empty holidays, grandchildren he might never meet, nights when he heard his wife's voice calling his name, only to wake to creaking wood. And the bird watched him, with eyes so alive, it seemed to understand everything, even in silence. It was during this time that the old man named the bird Azulino. You hear me, don't you, Azulino? No one else listens, but you do. Azulino now seemed healthy. His wing no longer drooped. His feathers regained their shine. He hopped between twigs in the cage, often perching near the bars, staring out the window, but he didn't sing. The old man thought maybe he was shy, or still healing, so he began bringing pieces of the forest into the house. Flowers, small fruits, dry leaves he hung like paintings inside the cage. I want you to feel at home, Azulino. But the bird only watched and returned to his corner. The old man didn't see it, or maybe didn't want to. But the cage, he believed, was a sanctuary. For Azulino was an altar without faith. There was care, yes, but also imprisonment. And the bird's silence, though it didn't scream, it bled. Time moved on. The leaves outside the window began to change color. Autumn, in its melancholic beauty, painted the world in tones of farewell. And inside the house, something also changed. Azulino no longer hopped around like before. He spent long minutes motionless, staring at the window. His eyes, once bright, now seemed far away, as if he saw something the old man couldn't, something perhaps not there, yet calling him. The old man began to notice the change, not as alarm, but as a quiet discomfort. He refreshed the water, changed the seeds, rearranged the twigs in the cage, even tried placing a small mirror inside. So you won't feel alone, Azulino. But the bird remained silent. Then the old man realized it had been days since he'd heard a single song. It hit him like a cold breath in the chest. He sat in front of the cage, stayed there watching as if trying to speak through a gaze. You're not happy, are you? Silence replied louder than any word. That night the old man had a strange dream. He dreamt of his wife sitting on the porch, holding Azulino in her hands. She looked at him unsmiling, her eyes glistening. You're caring for him like you cared for me in my last days. Out of fear of losing me, he awoke with a racing heart. What did that dream mean? He spent the entire day trying to distract himself. Cleaned the house, sorted through old books, made tea. But Azulino's eyes, and his wife's eyes in the dream, followed him everywhere. That night he sat by the window, the cage beside him, and he stayed there for hours, saying nothing. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't know what to do. Night fell heavy. In the darkness of the room, the old man watched Azulino's silhouette, quiet on his perch. Moonlight slipped through the thin curtains and drew shadows on the floor, as if the world outside whispered something he still couldn't hear. He closed his eyes and dreamed again. This time there was no porch. There was an open field, veiled in soft mist. His wife walked ahead, back turned, and Azulino flew around her. Free, his wings fully healed, sketching delicate curves in the sky. The old man ran after them but couldn't reach. He called her name, but no sound escaped his lips. Finally she turned and said gently, You never caged me. I left because it was time. But him, he still has the sky. He woke in a sweat, heart pounding. He felt a rush, as if he'd missed something important. He looked at the cage. Azulino was still there, but his eyes were not. They were distant, almost dull, as if trapped in a memory. And then the old man understood. It wasn't the lack of food, or care, or even loneliness. It was something he knew well. Though he pretended not to, it was grief. Azulino mourned silently for the freedom he lost, for a sky he could see but not reach. And the old man, who feared solitude so much, saw what he had done. He turned his pain of loss into a cage for another. Not out of cruelty, but out of attachment, out of fear of being alone again. He stood slowly, walked to the window, opened both shutters with a firm motion. Cold air rushed in, carrying the scent of time away. He returned to the cage. His hands trembled. He unlatched the small lock. Azulino didn't move. "You're free, my friend." Silence. "Forgive me for trying to make you stay. I thought saving you meant keeping you. But now I know. To save is also to let go." Azulino descended slowly, perched on the cage's edge, looked the old man in the eyes. No anger, no fear, just understanding. With the gentle beat of his wings, he flew. And for a moment he seemed to pause, as if to say something, then soared into the dark sky, vanishing among the trees like a whisper of wind. The old man stood still, and he cried, not out of sadness, but relief, because finally he understood. Love that imprisons is never whole. Only love that sets free can truly heal. The next day dawned with a different wind. Leaves danced in a new way. The old man woke earlier than usual, as if something within him still vibrated. The cage was empty. He left it there, open, like an altar to something that wasn't lost. It was no longer about absence. It was something else. A space that once held attachment now held memory. He spent the day in silence, but not the same silence as before. This was different. A silence that didn't hurt, that didn't weigh, that in a way even comforted. He cleaned the house with more care, placed fresh flowers in the kitchen vase, lit the fireplace, not out of cold, but because the warmth brought a presence he now recognized as his own. At night he sat in the rocking chair. The wind whispered gently through the window cracks. And then he heard it, a light sound, a song, faint, delicate, unmistakable. He stood slowly and walked to the window. Outside on a branch was Azulino. The bird didn't enter, didn't seek shelter. He just sang, and the song was different. It carried the lightness of one who flies, and the tenderness of one who remembers. It wasn't just a sound, it was a presence. The old man smiled. "You came back." But he knew the bird wouldn't stay. Didn't need to. It was a reunion without ties, a visit from one who, even far away, remains close. Azulino sang once more, then flew, but didn't disappear. From that day on, the old man left the window open. Every morning he watched the sky as one who waits. And sometimes, yes, Azulino returned, not with the frequency of attachment, but with the freedom of true affection. Time passed. The seasons changed their clothes once again. Winter laid its white cloak, covering the forest with soft silences. But inside the cabin, there was warmth. The old man no longer walked every day. His steps were slower, his body more tired. But something in him had bloomed, a kind of peace that didn't come from the absence of pain, but from reconciliation with it. The cage remained empty, open, a symbol of what he had learned. He didn't destroy it, didn't hide it, because memory too can be a form of freedom. Azulino still came. On special mornings, he sang for a few minutes, then left. Never entered, never landed inside. And the old man never tried to hold him. That was their silent agreement. One afternoon, as the sun slipped behind the trees, the old man wrote something on an old piece of paper and clipped it to the cage's edge. "Thank you for teaching me that love is not staying. It is allowing the other to fly, even when the sky feels far away." That night he dreamed for the last time. He was in a field. There were flowers. There was light. His wife smiled, sitting beneath a tree. Azulino perched on her shoulder. She held out her hand, and he, the old man, walked toward her, without hurry, without fear. When he woke, the sun was already rising. But he didn't get up. He simply rested there, in peace, like someone who had completed the flight he never knew he needed to take. At the window, Azulino sang, "To love is more than caring, more than protecting. To love truly is to have the courage to open the cage, even when your heart begs you to keep it closed." Some losses cannot be avoided. Some pains don't heal, they transform. And sometimes, what saves us is letting go, because some things only bloom in the sky.